Pocket FM.
To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.
Sophie was completely at ease during the hike. She was jumping and leaping, leading everyone else. She wore a short denim skirt with patches of cotton fabric to create a funky look and a white sleeveless shirt with a collar. Jacob couldn't help but notice her slender body moving swiftly up the hill. He also noticed that she felt happy around greenery and nature. At least they had something in common, that and their undecided future in the Dragon Clan. Sophie had worn branded sneakers, the kind that make hiking a breeze. Jacob had never thought of buying such expensive shoes. In fact, he never had the kind of money to even look at such shoes. But since Dracon was one of the richest people in the country, it wasn't surprising to see Sophie buy such expensive things. Jacob soon found out that the choice of clothes for Sophie was her mother's doing. Her designer instincts did an amazing job on Sophie's wardrobe. No wonder Sophie always wore such well-paired outfits, complementing her physique so well. Even the popular girls at his college didn't have such a unique fashion sense. Jacob, on the other hand, was wearing a collared shirt with stripes and baggy pants. His shoes were dirty from yesterday's practice, and he obviously didn't have any time to clean them. The only thing about him that could attract any attention was the tiny pink backpack on his back. That, too, didn't belong to him. It was Sophie's. It felt strange for him to be wearing it. Sophie rushed ahead, and Dracon and Helen were walking side by side with Jacob. While Dracon's outfit was casual, Helen went for a young, athletic look by wearing trendy joggers. It was impossible to tell that she was the mother of a girl in high school. They continued climbing up the mountain and were getting close to a peak. At every point, the trio found Sophie outracing them. They always found her waiting on a boulder or sitting on the grass. She impatiently rolled her eyes at them the moment they caught up, like an annoying checkpoint. Her inability to hold herself back reminded Jacob of the times when he went sightseeing with his parents in his childhood. Sophie, along with her family and Jacob, finally reached one of the sights on the mountain. The view was breathtaking and surreal, and the entire patch was surrounded by greenery. The breeze was cooler and the atmosphere was quiet except for the melodious hum of the critters. A stream lazily meandered down the trail, matching the tune of the critters with its gurgling noise. Sophie spread her arms as she looked at the beautiful view and took a deep breath of fresh air. Her tiny nostrils flared as she did that, and Jacob couldn't help but look at her. She was adorable, innocent, and so unique. It was incredibly relaxing and satisfying for all four of them to be one with nature again after having spent a long time in the city. Hand in hand, Helen and Dracon were taking their time to admire and appreciate the scenery around them. Since Jacob did not want to make Sophie uncomfortable, he strolled at a distance. Sophie continued to be an excited rabbit, sprinting and exploring ahead.
"Sophie, slow down," Helen cautioned. "Mom, there's a cave here," Sophie screamed passionately from ahead. Helen let out a chuckle. She turned around and waved at Jacob before walking ahead to join Sophie. "This cave was created due to the impact of the underground water. Streams in the mountain have formed secret paths inside the mountain. When they run into fragile and worn-out rocks, they would burst through. What we have seen on our way here are tributaries. The real water streams are all contained on the inside of the mountain." "How come there is no water in it then?" Sophie asked curiously. "That is because the size and impact of the water streams also depend on the season. When the water stream is affluent, the water will seep through. Of course, it could also be that the stream had been diverted. In other words, this was formerly an exit that was blocked from the inside because of a small-scale landslide," Helen explained patiently. While nodding her head, Sophie's eyes lit up as if she had just discovered a new continent. She pointed ahead. "Look, there is some writing over there." "Paradise on Earth. This was the doing of one of the ancestors of the Dragon Clan, who meditated in these caves. There is a dragon temple here called Celestial Cloud Temple, though these sites are not accessible to the mortals," Helen patiently elaborated as she walked. Blinking her big eyes, Sophie was intrigued by her heritage and followed her mother closely,
observing and listening. Jacob was in awe. He was surprised that Helen was so knowledgeable. Not only was she successful in architectural designs, but she was also very well versed with astronomy, geology, and culture. Everyone began following Helen. She knew the path well, and moreover, she was able to stop and explain interesting facts and anecdotes from time to time. This not only gave a lot of information to Sophie, but Jacob learned a lot about his new clan too. Her voice was gentle and pleasant, and Jacob was enchanted and had learned a lot just by listening to her. After walking for about 2 hours, they reached the halfway point and decided to go eat at a makeshift restaurant on the mountain. Their tables were outdoors underneath a thick canopy of trees. While they were devouring the meatloaf and fries, they were all taking in the magnificent views of the mountain. Jacob felt that he had been trapped in school for far too long. Today's opportunity to travel with Sophie's family refreshed his eyes and his mind, thanks to the greenery around them and the crisp, untouched streams. He became cheerful and chatty as well. "There is a dragon temple on top of this mountain called the Oneness Temple," said Dracon. "It was said that one of our ancestors, Elder Elijah, had once cultivated here. The biggest palace in this dragon temple is called the Founder's Palace. All of its shingles were covered with rolled gold. They have a pine tree that is 2,000 years old as well. Moreover, there is a monument that was inscribed by Elder Elijah himself." As he was eating, Dracon suddenly became enthusiastic and smiled at Sophie. "That is fun!" Sophie looked to her father in anticipation. "Let's go check it out after we finish eating." "It takes 3 hours to get up there. Since there are no cable cars here, your mom and I will pass on this one. We plan to walk up a little more, but then we will take our time to go back down and get some rest at the hotel," Dracon replied. "Aw." Sophie was obviously disappointed. "I can totally climb up alone," Sophie said enthusiastically after thinking for a few seconds. "No way. We would be worried if you went up there yourself." Helen denied Sophie's proposition. Knowing that she could not defy her parents, Sophie sulkily lowered her head in silence. After their meal, they continued the climb. After walking for about half an hour and having checked out Elder Lord Cave that had immense history, Dracon and Helen were ready to leave. As much as Sophie wanted to continue upwards and to explore the dragon temple on top of the mountain, she could only follow her parents' orders now that they had decided to call it a day. Seeing that Sophie was upset and was pouting her lips, Helen said, "How about we make an exception and let you continue your tour here on the mountain?" Sophie's eyes lit up instantaneously, and a bright smile spread across her face. "But there is one condition. Jacob has to accompany you and stay with you at all times. Otherwise, we will be worried," Helen added. Biting her lip, Sophie struggled for a few seconds, but finally concurred. "Fine. I want to see what's up there." A shade of joy appeared on Helen's face as she turned to Jacob. "Jacob, please stay with Sophie. Come back down as soon as you reach the top of the mountain. Give us a call if you need anything. At your pace, 4 hours should be enough for you to go up and get back down here. It takes approximately 2 more hours to get down to the foot of the mountain, so that would be 6 hours in total. We'll expect you to be back in the hotel by 7 o'clock. Actually, Jacob did not want to go back to the hotel so early either. It was a rare chance for him to be able to be immersed in nature. He nodded at Helen and assured her by saying, "Yes, Helen, I will try my best to look after Sophie." Dracon gave Jacob a light, encouraging nod before turning around and leaving with Helen. Jacob knew very well that Sophie's parents were trying to create opportunities for him and Sophie to get to know each other through spending time alone. However, he did not want to overthink it, as all he wanted now was to visit the legendary Dragon Temple. Likewise, Sophie was thinking the same thing. Now that her parents had walked far away, she started shouting at Jacob.
Come on, hurry up. Let's go. It's a long way up. After briefly rolling his eyes at her and smiling at her enthusiasm, Jacob looked up at the endless trail and took a step forward to make the climb.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.
The top of the mountain was 3 hours away from where Sophie and Jacob were standing. It was a long hike back and forth. He and Sophie weren't exactly friends yet, and so Jacob was a bit unsure of the commitment that he had just made. But he was willing to put in an effort. Plus, he was excited to see the Dragon Temple and the view from the mountaintop. Jacob looked at the gorgeous view around him. Even if he and Sophie didn't get along, at least the beautiful vistas would make up for it. On the other hand, Sophie was ecstatic. She was practically running up the mountain. It was unclear whether it was because she could not wait to visit the Dragon Temple, or that she was eager to outrace Jacob. Needless to say, Jacob didn't want her to get lost or out of his sight. Taking a deep breath, he sped up and followed closely behind her. Hurry! Hurry! See how slow you are? While climbing upwards, Sophie turned around to press Jacob to go faster. Jacob stuck to the speed he was most comfortable with, but kept a close eye on the path Sophie was taking. He was walking at a good speed, though. After all, he was an athlete and a pro at long-distance running, and knew how to properly distribute his physical capacity. Unlike Sophie, who was sprinting without saving some energy for the latter part of their journey. About a half an hour later, Sophie, who had been climbing upwards in haste, was exhausted. Gradually, she began to slow down. Going at a steady pace, Jacob had caught up with Sophie within minutes after she had slowed down. In no time, he ran past her. Hey! Seeing that Jacob was going to outrace her, Sophie felt that he was going to leave her behind. Jacob was only being playful. He turned around after taking a few steps ahead of her. What? Can you not run anymore? He said with a straight face. Sophie's face was bright red. I just want some water. She reached her arm towards Jacob and said, Give me some water. Jacob opened her backpack, took out a bottle of water, and handed it to her. After gurgling down half a bottle of water, Sophie threw the bottle back to Jacob, and he caught it. Placing the bottled water back in the backpack, he proceeded to climb slowly and waited patiently for Sophie to catch up. Sophie felt embarrassed at not being able to keep up after making such a fuss about climbing quickly. She slowly started to climb up behind him. She stopped making a fuss completely as she realized how nice Jacob was being to her. He had come on the trip spontaneously at her parents' command, he carried her backpack, and even readily agreed to escort her to the top of the mountain. On their way up, Jacob had been going at a steady pace and adjusted it according to his breath. On the other hand, Sophie now felt as if she was torturing herself. As she tried to keep up with Jacob, she was constantly out of breath, and her face had gone from bright red to pale white. She couldn't walk all that quickly anymore, and took plenty of stops to catch her breath. Jacob opened up the map and studied it for a few seconds. Well, we're halfway there. At our current pace, we should be able to get there in an hour. Oh my God, another hour? Sophie's face was filled with despair. As she imagined having to repeat the ordeal she had just gone through, her body couldn't help but feel weak and powerless. Jacob rolled up the map and got up on his feet again. Now that Sophie had finally caught her breath, she saw that Jacob was ready to move ahead without much of a break. Her admiration for Jacob immediately vanished, and she called out to him, I'm still with you, you know. You could have at least given me a heads up before walking again. Jacob turned around and looked at her from afar. What's wrong? He asked. You. Sophie was so tired that she couldn't form a complete sentence. Do you need a break? Jacob asked. Sophie's face had turned red from suppressing her feelings and her desire for a break. Even though she did need a break, she couldn't bring herself to say the words. She was afraid of giving Jacob a reason to mock or to look down on her. Oh my, it does seem a little tiring. Let's take a break here then. Jacob put down the backpack and placed it on the grass. He then sat down right next to Sophie.
Well, as long as we both know that you are the one who wants to take a break. I haven't said a word about being tired, Sophie said, with pride in her voice. Her face looked pale, and she was worn out, but she was fierce and determined. They were sitting quite close and could hear each other's breath. Jacob suddenly remembered that there was a camera in the backpack. He took it out quickly and pointed it at Sophie. He clicked a picture of her, making her raise her eyebrows. "What did you do that for?" she asked. "Well, it's not every day you turn multiple hues of red and pale from climbing a mountain. It is a moment to be remembered," Jacob said as he chuckled. "Give me that camera," said Sophie and lunged at him. Jacob was squatting while clicking the picture and didn't have his feet firmly on the ground. He tumbled down even with the low impact of Sophie's lunge. Sophie was on top of Jacob, still reaching out for the camera, and Jacob continued to move his arms around to keep it away from her. They became children for a few minutes as they fought over the camera, and their clothes were soon enough soiled with mud. It was after several minutes that they realized how close they were to each other. The warmth of their bodies was suddenly evident to both of them. They looked at each other and stopped fighting. Jacob was pinned to the ground with Sophie's hands clutching his arms tightly. She slowly released her hands and began to get up, but fell on Jacob's chest. Jacob slowly held her arms and helped her up. She looked down on the ground and hid her blush. Jacob got up too and said, "I can delete the picture if you want." "No, that's okay," said Sophie, with her gaze stuck to the grass near her shoes. "Let's take a picture together then," he suggested. Sophie looked up in surprise. I just thought your mom and dad might like it if we do. I mean, they want us to get along, don't they?" said Jacob. Sophie quietly nodded and stood next to him to pose. They both smiled for the camera and immediately stepped aside after getting clicked. Promptly, Jacob put the camera back into the backpack and stood up. "That's enough of a break. Let's get going." Jacob turned around and saw that Sophie's face was bright red from trying to catch up. He thought for a second and decided to slow down. "If I had my dragon core, I could outrun you 100 times, Sophie said quietly. "If you can't climb any more, it's not too late for us to turn back," Jacob proposed sincerely. There wasn't a trace of mockery in his tone. But Sophie was determined. "Who said I couldn't climb any more? I will get to the top of the mountain for sure." Jacob's mouth curved into a smile as he actually found Sophie's determination to be quite commendable. Sophie's face was bright red as they climbed, and she was sweating profusely. Clutching her fist tightly, she abruptly took a deep breath and outran Jacob again. After that, she continued to run even faster. Jacob could only speed up and run alongside her. Just when they began to doubt whether they could make it in time, things took a different turn. As they followed the trail and walked around a big thick tree, the golden eaves of the Dragon Temple suddenly came into their view. "Ha! We made it!" Sophie shouted out of joy. She didn't hold back her happiness of overcoming the mountain. Jacob also felt delighted. He was surprised, yet satisfied to see that their efforts had come to fruition. At the same time, he was a little concerned. It had taken a long time and a lot of physical strength for them to reach the mountaintop. Would they be able to get back to the hotel by 7 as they had planned? "Bubblehead, hurry up and don't get lost." Seeing that Jacob was hesitant and hadn't moved an inch, Sophie couldn't control her excitement and yelled at Jacob like he was the one delaying them all along. Jacob grinned as he felt Sophie coming back into her avatar and followed her towards the temple.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.
Pocket FM.
To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.